Veterans in Transition is sponsored by Tactile Medical and GermSuite.
Welcome to another season of Veterans in Transition. We thank you for your continued support. Each week, we travel around the region highlighting veteran resources, events, and we tell your story. In this episode, we'll hear from the Veteran Service Officer for Prince George's County on the issue of mental health and the resources that are available. And finally, remembering 9/11. PTSD, whether from the city streets, natural disaster, or military service, trauma is trauma.
PTSD is really a post-traumatic stress disorder that is caused by some type of traumatic experience that a person goes through. Many military people suffer from it, especially those that have been involved in conflicts around the world. And because of it, we come home and we have problems fitting back into the community and into our families. I am the Veteran Affairs Officer for Prince George's County, but I'm also a former commander in the United States Air Force, where I served as a commander for 18 of my 30 years that I served. And I had to deal with health, morale, and welfare issues back during my command. And I can tell you this, when I took over as the Veteran Affairs Officer for Prince George's County, one of the first things that I did was to create a community familiarization program where veterans are able to come to me with any issues they have, and we will address them right through the Office of Veterans Affairs. And when they come to us and they have stress, mental disorder, fatigue, can't sleep, having flashbacks and things of that nature, I readily remember what I went through when I came back after Vietnam service, and we make sure that they're connected with a partner in the community, because what we did is we created partnerships as the hub for Prince George's County Veteran Affairs. We created partnerships throughout the whole entire region. When they come to me, we refer them to such organizations as the Veterans Affairs down in Washington, D.C. We have formed partnerships with behavioral and healthcare organizations like InterDynamics that operates right out of Prince George's County. And if a veteran comes to us and they don't have insurance, or they can't get the VA or don't want to get the VA, we refer them to our partners like InterDynamics, who will help them with their medical care and so forth and so on. We also work with our health department and other entities throughout the county to make sure that they get the services that they need. So there are resources, and that's the advantage of having a VA hub right here in the county where our veterans live, work, and raise their families, because we can direct them to the right place to get the right assistance that they need to be able to live productive lives in Prince George's County. So yes, we do have a multi-pronged approach to make sure that veterans are referred so that they can continue to thrive right here.
So basically, you're saying that there is adequate help and assistance, but maybe an informative thing that the person may not know that help is out there.
That's right. So that's why we have an extensive outreach program in order to get the word out. We work with our community entities. We work with the interfaith community. We work with businesses. We work with nonprofits. We go out to meetings like this to tell about who we are. I was appointed by County Executive also, Brooks, and I really thank her for seeing the needs of our veterans and building this office to be one of the top VA offices in the state of Maryland and in the region. But we have an extensive outreach program to spread the message, and in fiscal year 2022, we're even going to increase that outreach through media and periodicals and public relations and so forth and so on.
That's great. That's great. That's great. Mayor, did you want to?
Yeah, with the resources, as Dr. Dula mentioned, there are also resources for veterans and for those who are just dealing with traumatic situations like NAMI. NAMI is also another organization that helps people deal with traumatic experiences and seek counseling and finding various resources. I was one of the county commissioners for Prince George's County on the human relations side, and one of the things we fought for is eradicating discrimination, as that's another thing that we have to talk about, and we'll talk later about about is the stigma of even talking about having a traumatic experience or having depression or anxiety. Those are the things that we have to get past. There should be no shame, and no stigma, and no silence when it comes to issues of traumatic experiences, and that's what we're dealing with. So there's various places to go, but people don't know where to go, or people don't know how to seek that particular information, or really having the support to say, you know what, you could do this, I'll walk with you, hold your hand, and we'll do it together. We lack that, but I think in the time of COVID, pre and post, it's that time for us to start talking about it. I myself, because people have to see, Bobby Rocks, you have to see me be normal and say, even me. I've dealt with anxiety and panic disorder. I've dealt with dealing with issues of trauma and panic attacks. I have too. I've dealt with depression. But and I still am the mayor. I still am the director of the 100. I'm still living my life. I'm still paying my bills. I'm still doing what I need to do. But I'm also vulnerable. I'm human. So I think when we start to have those conversations and stop trying to be superheroes to everybody and everything, everybody will start coming out and start having those conversations too.
If I may piggyback on that just a bit, one of the things that we have to be conscious of is the fact that in the military, you don't go forward to say I have a PTSD, a mental issue, or things of that nature, because it can have a direct effect on your promotion, your job selection, and even your tenure in the military. And so we don't readily run to get that help. So when we come back out to military, to a civilian life, we carry that same personality with us. So we harbor a lot of things. We don't talk about it. And I often tell people to make sure you observe those that return to our civilian life when they come back to be your neighbors and friends and community members. There's a commercial on TV where a young man is sitting in a restaurant, and you may have seen this, and he's sitting there quietly, all by himself, staring into space. But on the other, down 2 or 3 tables down, there's an older gentleman, looks like maybe a Vietnam veteran, with his military hat on. And he sees the young man sitting over there by himself, isolated, withdrawn inside himself. And he gets up and he goes over and he speaks to the young man, and they began a conversation. What's most important about that is through observation, he saw that there was a need to interact with this young man. And that's what we ask of our community members, because as I said, we on active duty or reserve or wherever you're at, when they come back, you may observe something in there. The behavior may have changed. Or it might be a stranger and you say, you know, I just need to talk to that person because something's not right. We're asking you to reach out to them, and you may make the difference. And I'll conclude by this. In the military community, veterans and military commit suicide at a rate of 17 to 22 per day. 22 members who raised their hand to say, I do solemnly swear to support and defend this Constitution of the United States, find it important to kill themselves. And oftentimes it's because they feel isolated, they feel withdrawn, they have no one to talk to. Just like you said, where do I turn to? And that's why we ask that we have partnerships throughout our county with you, so that you can say there's an Office of Veteran Affairs. Or I know Mayor Medlock, and he's very much in tune with what's happening with our mental health community. Send them to the right people that can guide their footsteps so they can get help. Because they may not know, but you may save a life that day.
Mm-hmm. That's great response right there. I mean, and I heard both of you all say, I mean, just the access to information. You know, we're in an information age where we have all of these different social media platforms. We have Facebook, we have Twitter, we have Instagram, you know, we have a computer in our hands. And how is it that we don't have that information? Some people are totally still missing that information in the information age, to where, like Dr. Dula said, people are committing suicide. And you're saying that there is assistance. There's assistance out there, but they're not informed about it, and then they're not making a move to get the services. It sounds like we have a problem with connectivity. really informing people and letting people know, like you said, man, like that it's okay to get the help. It's all of these. It's like a lot of hurdles. It seems like we're facing to get them in a position to where they can talk about it, get some help, and then move forward with their life positively. What do y'all think about that?
Absolutely. I think, too, it's a lot of information saturation, all right? There's so many resources, so many things, so many people saying so much at one time that you don't hear that singular voice saying, hey, do this instead. It's like we have to have that baby penguin mentality where among thousands of penguins, that one penguin could hear the mother. And so we need to hear and see the right information, because everybody's saying everything. They have so many opinions about what we should do, what you should do, how you should do it, but they're not listening to that right voice. So we can have information saturation where there's so much happening, but we need to key people into the right areas and just say, wait, this is what you should do for you. What is specific for you at that particular point in time for your life, not what's right for the other person, because what worked for them will not necessarily work for you. So we have to really guide people in that right direction so they can have the information that's needed and that's needed for them now. One thing COVID has taught us is that we can see everybody hurting. You know, we had a chance to really look inward and see that we're hurting, and now if I look in your eyes, I can see anxiety because I have it. If I can look into your eyes and I can see depression because I have it, we have a chance to identify the symptoms that we are both dealing with collectively, not individually. So once we do that, we can say, you know what, let's have a conversation, because I see your anxiousness. So let's talk about it, because I'm feeling a little anxious myself today. But once we start having those types of conversations become real, sustainable, tangible, and now we can start healing. So the things and the generational things of the past can go away. But we have to start the conversation. And what do we do with the social media saturation is really get people back balanced, bring them back in the right direction, give them a particular place to go and a way to kind of move forward. And we have to make that happen together.
And let me say this. You are our ambassadors. We come out here to speak to our community members so that you can take it back to your neighborhood.
As the country commemorates 9/11, we ask the question, where were you?
I was a deployed squadron commander, flying F-16s for Operation Southern Watch, no-fly zone over southern Iraq. And I was not flying that day. And I was top 3 supervision for the day. And because of the time difference, it was the afternoon there in Saudi Arabia. And my intel NCO came in and said an airplane just hit the World Trade Center. So I was thinking it was a light aircraft. I wasn't thinking like an airliner. And then when we got in front of a TV and then really saw what was going on, it was holy cow. I mean, this was very tragic. And it was interesting that being there in Saudi Arabia, we had a sense that things were going to spin up. And then I was still there deployed when Operation Enduring Freedom kicked off in October of 2001. And watched the combat operation. Then I think that the thing that really stuck with me was when I came home. I came home about mid-October, and just to see the difference in the United States, with all the flags and all the patriotism, and to thank you for your service and those kinds of things. And then to think that we've been involved as much as we have been for the past 20 years. We'll come up on the 20-year anniversary, and to think about many of our airmen who weren't even born, when 9/11 occurred, and how it's really kind of shaped the past couple of decades. And so it's meaningful for me because it's been a good portion of my career. But I also think about the airmen, soldiers, sailors, Marines, and Guardians and others that have lost their life, after 9/11 or during the day of 9/11, and how it really changed the nation and changed the world.
I believe we had, I think it was CNN on in one of the offices, and the first plane hit the World Trade Center in New York City, and we all came rushing in, said, what's going on? Wow, this is a horrible accident. And then you saw the second plane hit. and everybody's jaw just dropped. There was complete silence. We knew we had a problem. So I ran from my office to the other side where the director's office was and went in, and I'm in front of his desk and we're discussing a few more topics about the meeting when it sounded like a freight train going past his window, and his blinds started to shake and everything explodes. Okay, and the whole floor just felt like it shook, and I just dove on the floor. And then he's yelling, "Everybody get out of here now, get out now." And so he's in a vaulted space. And so you opened the big door and you saw people running down the hall, screaming, and huge plumes of smoke coming down. It was like people were running and there's this wall of smoke following them. And it was a little bit hard to leave the room because at that point you knew something bad was happening. You just didn't know what it was. And so you're looking out and you don't know who is good or who is bad. You really don't. Personally, I was ready for people to show up with masks on and starting to shoot all of us because you just didn't know.
I was a commander of the 5th Combat Comm Support Squadron. So I just finished taking my official photos and I was heading home to drop off my uniforms and head back into work. When I got the call, the alert that a couple planes had hit the towers in New York, and there were possibly others that were inbound to other targets. Now our mission was tactical communications or combat communications, and we exercised many times all over southeastern Georgia to prepare to go to a bare base and set up communications and be ready at a moment's notice. So we knew what our mission was and what we had practiced and what we had trained to do. Our unit immediately convened the battle staff based upon the incidents that happened in New York and in other places. And we knew that we were going to be called upon to support the CENTCOM area of responsibility. And my task as the commander of the support squadron was to help the mission squadron get out the door. And again, we have practiced many times while we were there, but now we were going to have to do it for real. And we were ready. Our nickname is the 5th Mob, and our motto is "Let's go." We were ready to be called upon for the global war on terrorism, and otherwise known as Operation Enduring Freedom.
While I worked at the Pentagon for many years, I was in Air Force intelligence for a number of years. And we used to have lunch down in the center court of the Pentagon itself. And during that time, we would often look up and see the aircraft flying by from National Airport and say to ourselves, wonder what would happen if something happened to one of those aircraft and it flew into the Pentagon. Because working in Air Force intelligence, you saw many scenarios. And we often thought about that. Then finally on 9/11, when it became a reality, I can remember thinking to myself, wow, it finally happened. Just like we sat back and envisioned many years ago during the Cold War.
On 9/11, I was a colonel in the United States Air Force stationed at Langley Air Force Base in Virginia. My job was the comptroller for Air Combat Command. When the airplanes first hit the World Trade Center, my assistant ran into my office and told me what had happened. I initially couldn't believe it. I thought it had to be a mistake. So I immediately turned on the television and saw it for myself. And I was in shock. Initially, I thought it was an accident, but when the next airplane rammed into the Pentagon, I knew that as a country, we were under attack. And when I got a phone call immediately after that from our commander that said he wanted to convene an emergency meeting right away, I knew that this was serious, and I knew that soon, as a country and as an Air Force, we would be at war.
I was planning to see a client that was arriving at the Washington National Airport that day. I recall watching the first plane fly into the World Trade Center. It just seemed so unreal. It was shortly thereafter that I received a call from my client, Mr. O'Connor. He had just arrived at the Washington National Airport. He said he was on the plane behind the plane that hit the Pentagon. And he was able to see the plane and the impact as he was landing at Washington National for a brief moment. As I finished that call, another plane flew into the World Trade Center. And if there was any question that this was anything other than terrorism, it certainly was out of my mind at that point. All I could think about was Franklin Roosevelt's speech, "This is a day that will live in infamy." Frankly, to this day, I am reluctant to board a plane on 9/11. It is always in the back of my mind that somehow or other that there could be another celebratory attack on this day, and this is particularly the case as we approach the 20th anniversary of 9/11.
On September 14, 1977 in Georgetown, Guyana, IT-2 Chris Romeo Bishundat, United States Navy, was born to Bola and Basmati Bishundat. He was the oldest of 3 children. At the age of 2, he and his family moved to Waldorf, Maryland, which became his home. Affectionately known to family and friends as Romeo, IT-2 Bishundat graduated from Thomas Stone High School in 1995 and enlisted in the Navy on September 13, 1995. After graduating from boot camp in November 1996, then IT-3 Bishundat reported for 1 year of duty aboard the USS Yorktown. In November of 1997, he transferred to the USS Shreveport, where he, according to Lieutenant Mike Coleman, stated, he quickly established himself as one of the finest sailors to ever walk the decks of the Super Gator. While aboard the USS Shreveport, he became the icon of education and training as he spent countless hours in providing computer accessibility, distance learning, and operating as the ship's webmaster. IT-2 Bishundat reported for duty at the Pentagon in May 2001 to the Chief of Naval Operations Communications Center. OPNAV TCC, the Pentagon Directorate of Naval Computer and Telecommunications Station, Washington, D.C., was where he quickly qualified in 3 watch stations and as well on his way to success. On September 11, 2001, IT-2 Bishundat had reported for work as ordered, excited about the fact that OPNAV TCC's Voice Communications Office had just been relocated in the newly renovated wing of the Pentagon. His zeal for education, zest for life, and love of his family and friends will forever grace the many lives that he has touched.
That's all for this edition of Veterans in Transition. We ask that you like us on Facebook and follow us on social media. We'd like to hear from you. If you know of a veteran story or resource that's having an impact in the community, reach out to us at info@vetsintransition.com. And remember, stay on purpose and stay relevant. Until next time.